people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Set to return to action December 13th on the undercard of the recently announced Vizioli versus Haworth fight. Unbeaten up-and-comer in the women's bantamweight division, TBA Ayton is set to return to action for, get this, what is the fourth time this calendar year, currently 3-0 with 3 KOs. Having debuted as a professional in June, she debuted in June, fought again in September, fought again in this month, and is set to fight again in December, capping off the year with 4 professional bouts in about 6 months. They've managed to squeeze in 4 developmental fights for Tia in just 6 months. So just imagine if she had debuted in January instead of June. Might have brought the grand total to 7 or 8 fights in just her first year as a professional. Now, what it reminds me of, sort of, is Mike Tyson's first year as a professional. Unbeknownst to most, Mike's first year as a pro fighter, he fought 15 times. They squeezed in 15 fights into a single calendar year for a then Mike Tyson who was still in his teens. The same applies to TBA Ayton in the sense that she's only 19 years old and she will have fought 4 times in 6 months. This is the way to do it. I'd go as far as saying that Tia don't need to worry about fighting for a title of any kind for another year and a half, maybe 2. For now, it's about amassing marquee value, developing as a fighter, getting the audience to know you and what you're all about.
Fucking bitches up.
Knocking bitches out. You do that enough times, you're going to develop a reputation with the audience, and they will begin to look forward to your fights, so that by the time you do fight for an alphabet title, they're invested, they're involved. They care. It's not enough to just pick up a trinket, some belts, here and there. You need it to mean something, not just for you, but for the people that are watching you. There is that to consider, and there is also that in TBA Ayton's 3 fights so far, not a single one of them has gone the distance, all scheduled for 6 rounds. Tia didn't let it go to the cards. Tia's a knockout merchant. She prides herself on that, her punching power and finishing strong, which could in turn endear her to the boxing community at large. Let's be honest. Casuals love knockouts. It's all good to pitch a shutout and give a fighter a boxing lesson, but nothing drives the point home more than a knockout. Giving the judges the night off, taking it out of the judges' hands. So Tia currently campaigns as a 118-pounder, where Shernika Johnson currently holds all the alphabet titles and Dina Thorsland is still the lineal and Ring Magazine champion. Now, I don't think that Tia is on a collision course with those fighters. By the time that Tia is ready to fight for a title, those fighters will have likely moved on, creating the most opportune situation for Tia to not just pick up an alphabet title or titles, but become the face of this weight class, the face of this division. After they're gone, she'll be the only fighter with a major promotional outfit behind her. It's all about strategy now. When Matchroom first started signing female fighters after all their success with Katie Taylor, they wanted to see if they could duplicate that success, and they've learned a lot since then. Now they are refining their methods. It's not enough to just promote women boxers. They want to turn them into marquee attractions. Now it's about marketing, not just affording these women boxers an opportunity to box on a big platform, but turning them into the big platform. We'll see what shakes out for Tia in December against an opponent that has yet to be announced. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, I'm sure most of you have heard by now, Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao rematch being explored by Netflix. A Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao rematch more than 10 years after their initial meeting is being explored to take place next year in another Netflix boxing event, sources told The Ring. When they fought in 2015, Mayweather outpointed Pacquiao In a fight 5+ years in the making, the event shattered revenue records, generating 4.6 million pay-per-view buys, the most all-time, along with a record gate of 72.2 million in Las Vegas. Overall, the event approached 600 million in revenue. 10 years ago. 10 years later, now that Manny Pacquiao has returned to boxing and looked good in a draw with Mario Barrios in a July welterweight title fight, there's renewed interest in the Filipino fighting Mayweather. Pacquiao, 46, did enough to earn the nod in the eyes of many over Barrios. The former 8-weight world champion announced earlier this month that he would return in late January in Las Vegas. It's unclear at this time when Mayweather versus Pacquiao would take place, if finalized, and if Pacquiao would still fight in a different bout at the start of the year. It was initially tabbed to be Rolly Romero. That's who they said Manny would face at the start of the year. But then an order came down from the WBA for Rolly Romero to defend his belt against his mandatory Shakram Giyasov, scuppering any plans to fight Manny. We talked about that in my previous video just as well. Floyd Mayweather in the past few weeks became attached to a Mike Tyson fight. A Mike Tyson fight for the coming year. Where are we with that?
Oh, we'll get to that.
Mayweather, 48, hasn't boxed officially since 2017 when he ran his record to 50-0 with a 10th round TKO win over UFC star Conor McGregor. However, Mayweather has remained around boxing with a slew of exhibition events, including a 2021 meeting with Logan Paul. After Mayweather comfortably outpointed Pacquiao in 2015, it was revealed Pacquiao competed with a torn rotator cuff. Now, we could see the pair share the ring once again, and it's the type of major event Netflix has shown interest in since entering the boxing space last year. So far, the streaming giant, which has over 300 million subscribers, has delivered 3 boxing events: Tyson vs. Paul in November of last year, Taylor vs. Serrano 3 in July, and September's Terence Crawford vs. Canelo Alvarez fight for the ring and undisputed super middleweight championship. The 4th comes November 14th in Miami with an exhibition between Jake Paul and boxing star Gervonta Davis. A few questions in association with what are supposed to be Mayweather's engagements for the coming calendar year. Whether it's Mike Tyson or Manny Pacquiao, how come none of these have been associated with PBC on Prime? Why weren't those events being held there? Prime ain't giving the PBC no money. How many times I gotta tell you that? They're not giving the PBC a budget, let alone the kind of money that both Floyd and Manny, or Mike, would be looking for. That's why PBC ain't got no money. Short answer. Next question. What happened to the Mike Tyson fight? How are we now hearing about another fight for Floyd before we got the details for the Tyson fight? Well, I told you when they made that announcement a few weeks ago that even though they're saying that the fight was done, I didn't believe it was done. What I think they were doing was reading the room. They're going to make like they made the fight so that they can then shop it around to a major broadcaster, like a Netflix, because when they made that announcement, they didn't give you a date, they didn't give you a location, they didn't give you a broadcaster, but they announced that the fight was done. A fight that's supposed to go down all the way out there sometime next year. For the kind of money that Floyd and Mike could be looking for, you would need the involvement of a major broadcaster to finance the guarantees to the fighters. Since the pay-per-view model is not what it used to be, boxing fans are not buying boxing pay-per-views anywhere near as much as they used to. You want your money up front, and without that, no fight. And I don't know for sure, I don't know right now, but I get the impression that that thing with Mike and Floyd may not go down. Think about it. At what weight would Floyd Mayweather have to weigh in to fight Mike Tyson? And at what weight is he about to weigh in to fight Manny? Discrepancy in weight for the both of those opponents creates a lot of questions. And we haven't heard much about that Mike Tyson fight since they quote-unquote announced it. They announced it, and then things just kind of went quiet. I'd wager it's because they were shopping it around. You don't think Netflix wanted it? I don't know. They did good numbers with the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight. They did great numbers with that. But if this is the opponent selection for Floyd Mayweather in the coming calendar year, I'd say he has to do the Pacquiao fight first. If it is his intention to fight both Manny Pacquiao and Mike Tyson in 2026, he's got to do the Pacquiao fight first, then move up. Then you do the thing with Mike. If you do end up doing the thing with Mike, I have serious reservations about whether or not Mayweather versus Tyson is actually a thing. Mayweather versus Pacquiao, the rematch. 10 years too late for me as a boxing fan. I don't actually care. I don't actually want to see it. Their initial meeting, in spite of all the hype, was not the barn burner people thought it would be. It wasn't the shootout. It's not the outcome of the fight. It's that the fight itself was not exciting. It wasn't. For all of the hype around it, it wasn't that entertaining. And I picked Floyd Mayweather to win, by the way. I picked him to win a ho-hum decision, so it's not sour grapes. So the idea that 10 years after that fight, that wasn't all that entertaining when Floyd Mayweather is close to 50 years old and Manny Pacquiao is right behind him, that they're gonna fight again? I'm not excited. You also have to consider how much money Floyd Mayweather left on the table all those years ago when the pay-per-view model was still robust and effective in generating money for big fights. That if you wanted to do a rematch, you shouldn't have waited 10 years to do it, because if you would have did the second fight right after the first, you likely still would have made more money than you stand to make now. People actually bought pay-per-views back then, and after the first fight, people did want to see Manny get a rematch. You know, him complaining about his shoulder to unrotate a cuff, some people bought into it, and there were a lot of people who would have paid to see a rematch. 10 years later, though, it's not what it was. The first fight generated in the neighborhood of over $360 million at the box office alone, not counting the $72 million they generated at the gate. The time to do a second fight with Manny was back then, when people still bought pay-per-views and when this fight was still a hot topic. 10 years on, you could probably get people to watch it on Netflix if it's not a pay-per-view, and you could probably make a couple of million from it, say 40, but you would have made more from this back then. If you would have did it back then, I'd wager that Floyd must have fallen on hard times if he's actually considering running it back with Manny, because for a long time, it was a non-starter, in spite of how much money was on the table. Was out of the question. Floyd didn't want to do it. Back then, what changed his mind? It's long been rumored that the reason Floyd Mayweather has scheduled so many exhibition bouts in succession in the years that followed his retirement from boxing is because he's fallen on hard times. Now, Floyd, being a millionaire, his hard times aren't gonna look like yours or mine, but the overhead of his expensive lifestyle requires a lot of money. More than he's generating from quote-unquote Mayweather promotions, more than he's generating at those titty boys. So if after a decade he's warmed to the idea of fighting Manny again, I'd wager that money matters have a lot to do with it. Fight is kind of stale. Kind of stale? It is stale. The both of these guys are approaching 50. I don't actually want to see this, but if Netflix puts it on and it's not a pay-per-view, I'm gonna watch it. And so are you. I'm actually more excited about what fighters might fight on the undercard of Pacquiao versus Mayweather 2. As Netflix is spending a lot of money, maybe we'll get some interesting fights on the undercard. But as far as the main event itself, do I want to see a close to 50 years old Mayweather fight a close to 50 years old Pacquiao? No! In men's heavyweight news, former champion Daniel Dubois targets Agit Kabayel after Tony Yoka signs for January clash. Daniel Dubois may have fallen short in his bid to reclaim the heavyweight crown, but the Londoner's name remains firmly in the mix among the division's biggest players. In July, Dubois was stopped in ruthless fashion by Alexander Usyk at Wembley. 2 years on from their initial meeting in Poland, many believed he could spring the upset in their rematch, having rebuilt himself with victories over Jarrell Big Gravy Miller, Big Gravy, Big Hungry, Philippe Pergovic, and Anthony Joshua. Daniel Dubois entered Usyk versus Dubois 2 as IBF champion, with the Ukrainian holding the 3 other titles. But once again, the Brit came up short, and Usyk's win following his decision to vacate the IBF title, which briefly elevated Dynamite Dan from interim to full champion, saw him become a 2-time undisputed champion heavyweight ruler. On Saturday night, Daniel Dubois was among the heavyweight contenders ringside at the O2 Arena to watch Fabio Wortley produce another dramatic comeback, stopping Joseph Parker in the 11th to stay unbeaten. Wortley now looks set for a crack at Usyk in the coming calendar year, leaving others in the chasing pack eager to make their move. One man doing just that is Germany's Agit Kabayel, 26-0 with 18 KOs. 3 Riyadh season wins over Arslanbek Makhmudov, Frankie Sanchez, and Zile Chang have earned him the WBC interim title and a place among the world's elite. Kabayel will return to Germany for the first time in 3 years on January 10th, 2026, headlining a Gold Star Queensbury event at the Rudolf Weber Arena in Oberhausen. While his opponent has yet to be confirmed, Tony Yoka revealed on Instagram that he has yet to sign his contract to face Kabayel in January. Basically, Tony signed his end and now he's waiting for Agit Kabayel to sign his. He's putting pressure on Agit.
Agit, I saw that you announced the fight, but you didn't say that you're gonna fight me. Come right here. Look, Agit Kabayel, January 10th. I signed the contract right now. Just sign your part and then we will see each other in the ring January 10th. That's on Queensbury. That's for you guys. Let's make it happen.
I have no reason to believe that Agit Kabayel has anything to worry about in Tony Yoka, or that Agit Kabayel is swerving Tony Yoka. Tony Yoka, who's lost back-to-back fights to Martin Bakole, Carlos Takam, Riyad Merhi. Agit folds this guy up like a lawn chair. Very quietly, Tony Yoka has managed to get himself back in the winner's bracket, and he's currently on a 3-fight winning streak since having paired up with veteran trainer Don Charles, who used to train Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois, who's made it clear he wants to face Agit Kabayel. Speaking to DAZN's Ade Oladipo, he said, "I'm ready to go. I'll take on Kabayel. I'm ready for him. I'm ready to get back to the top." Kabayel responded via Instagram, "I say today, let's go for the fight. I think this is the biggest fight for boxing fans right now. Let's do it. For the boxing fans, I'm ready for the next challenge. Is it possible that the holdup, that the delay in Agit signing his end of the contract is because he's about to swap out Tony for Daniel?"
Whoa. You think that Daniel Dubois would take on Agit Kabayel so soon after having been knocked out by Usyk?
Oh, well, Billy Nelson does. Billy Nelson, who trains and manages Martin Bakole, he's of the opinion that Dubois versus Kabayel is set to go down next year on the 10th as penance for what he described as Partygate. That this is basically a punishment for Daniel Dubois having to fight Agit Kabayel. It's hard not to agree. If that's the way it happens, and they're going to get Daniel to fight this guy so soon after having been knocked out, they're not doing Daniel any favors. He's trained by Tony Sims now.
What the fuck is Partygate?
You don't remember what happened? The day of the Usyk rematch, it was said that Daniel Dubois' father threw a little party, a little soiree. Surely you can see how that would service as a distraction for young Daniel the day of a major fight, his rematch with Alexander Usyk. I also remember hearing that he had to walk to the arena. He had to walk to get there. They screwed the pooch, so now they're screwed, at least according to Billy Nelson. But we'll see.
I'm not against Agit Kabayel fighting Tony Yoka in a homecoming fight, and I'm definitely not against him fighting Daniel on the bounce. Let's have it!